Elias Ward had always known being human in the Dominion's capital was dangerous. Not just dangerous, foolish. The Xyrathi were ancient, their cities spanned entire planets, and their eyes seemed to see everything, even when they looked away. Humans were small in comparison, fragile, emotional, and unpredictable. Yet somehow, that unpredictability was what kept Elias alive. He had a secret. A dangerous one that could get him executed if discovered. He loved someone who should have been untouchable, a Xyrathi noble scientist named Lyrina. They had met in the lower labs of the capital, where human engineers and alien researchers worked side by side. At first, their connection had been about work, the exchange of knowledge, the challenge of understanding alien technology, the thrill of problem-solving together. But it had grown into something else, something humans called love, and for Elias it was as natural as breathing, yet it was a risk he carried like a dagger in his chest. The palace was vast, impossible to map completely, with corridors that seemed to twist in ways that defied geometry. Hidden sensors and silent watchers recorded nearly everything. He had been careful, always careful. His messages to Lyrina were encrypted, his meetings brief and secret. Still, secrets had a way of slipping out, and the Xyrathi were patient predators. It was mid-morning when the summons arrived. A small silver plate floated into his quarters with a soft hum. It hovered, glowing faintly, until he reached for it. Words appeared in his own language, simple and direct. The Queen requests your presence in her chamber. Elias froze, every muscle in his body tensed. No human had ever been personally summoned by Queen Valeth. Stories of her power were whispered across the Dominion. She was ancient, wise, and terrifying. She could read intent as easily as speech, they said. To be called before her was usually a prelude to execution, or at least severe punishment. He swallowed hard. His mind raced. Was this about his secret? Had someone discovered his love for Lyrina? Or had the Queen seen through the veil of secrecy with the clarity that only she could possess? He dressed carefully. Simple clothing, neat and without ornamentation. Nothing to distract from his presence, nothing to betray nervousness. His heart beat fast, each step heavier than the last as he left his quarters. The corridors stretched endlessly. Shadows of alien statues, impossibly tall and sharp-edged, lined the walls. Their eyes seemed to follow him. When he reached the chamber doors, he hesitated. They were enormous, carved from a single piece of black crystal, etched with symbols that shimmered in the light. He placed his hand on the smooth surface. The doors slid open silently, revealing a room larger than any building on Earth. It was circular, with a domed ceiling painted with constellations that moved slowly as if alive. At the center stood Queen Valeth herself. She was taller than any Xyrathi he had seen, with skin that shimmered faintly like the surface of a calm lake under sunlight. Her eyes were large, silver, and unsettling. They held a depth that made him feel as though she could see every thought in his mind. She did not rise or gesture, she simply watched. "You are human," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "You are far from your kind's home, and yet you carry secrets. Tell me, Elias Ward, what do you hide?" "It is forbidden, I know. I have hidden it. And dangerous if ignored. Courage that rises without command. Humanity has power in ways my people have forgotten. I need to understand it better." The Queen did not smile, but her gaze sharpened. "Perhaps. The Dominion faces challenges you cannot imagine. Many of my advisors counsel stagnation. They say humans are weak. They are wrong. I want to see how far you are willing to go for what you love. I want to see how far your species will go when pushed." He wanted to ask questions, to understand what she truly meant, but the weight of her words pressed down on him. Every fiber of his being told him that the coming days would define not just his fate, but the perception of humans across the Dominion. "You are summoned here for a reason," she continued. "Not to punish, not to reward, to observe, to test. If you succeed, it may change how your kind is viewed forever. Fail, and you will vanish from this place." The Queen gestured, and a holographic display emerged from the floor. It showed parts of the galaxy he had never seen, sectors of planets embroiled in civil unrest, alien species plotting, fleets maneuvering in silent, deadly formations. The Dominion faced threats both within and without, and somehow she believed a human could make a difference. "You must learn quickly," Valeth said. "The galaxy is not kind. It rewards the prepared and the fearless. Show me what humans can do. Show me what you can do." If he failed, he would simply be another cautionary tale whispered across the Dominion. The Queen stepped back, and the chamber lights dimmed slightly, leaving him alone with the display. He studied the images carefully. Maps of rebellion, schematics of alien weaponry, reports on diplomatic tensions. He realized that understanding the Dominion would require more than intelligence. It would require insight, intuition, and something that humans had in abundance: emotion. For the first time, Elias felt a surge of determination. He would not hide, he would not run. He would face whatever the Dominion had to throw at him, armed with the thing that made him human: love, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. He left the chamber slowly, his mind still reeling from the encounter. The palace corridors stretched endlessly before him, but they no longer felt oppressive. They felt like a path that he had to walk with his head held high. Outside, the city hummed with alien life. Ships glided silently above, and the streets were alive with beings of shapes and sizes he could scarcely comprehend. Yet in the midst of it all, Elias felt a strange comfort. He was human. He was alive. And for the first time, he realized that being human might not be a weakness. It might be the greatest weapon he had. As he returned to his quarters, he thought of Lyrina, the secret love he had hidden from everyone, even from the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He realized that the path ahead would be dangerous, but it would also be extraordinary. The Queen's summons was not just a threat, it was an opportunity. And Elias knew he would do whatever it took to prove that humans, even fragile and emotional, could stand tall among the stars. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, planning his next steps. The galaxy was vast, ancient, and merciless, but he had been given a chance to show what humanity could do. A chance to turn a secret love into a force that even the oldest and most powerful beings could not ignore. And deep down, Elias knew that no matter what happened, nothing would ever make him hide again. Elias could not stop thinking about the Queen's words. The summons had left him uneasy, yet strangely alive. Humans were taught to be careful in alien courts, to hide emotion, to survive through caution. But the Queen's chamber had shown him something different: curiosity, attention, and even respect. Respect for a human. That was dangerous, yes, but it also meant opportunity. The next morning, he returned to his work at the palace's central laboratories, where humans and Xyrathi collaborated on projects ranging from energy manipulation to interstellar mapping. Every step felt heavier now. Every pair of eyes seemed to follow him. He was acutely aware of whispers that might hide behind the corners of the grand halls, subtle glances that could mean suspicion, or worse, accusation. Yet in the midst of fear, he felt something rare: confidence. He found Lyrina in one of the observation towers, studying a holographic display of gravitational anomalies. She looked up as he entered, her silver eyes meeting his. There was a flicker of worry there, a recognition that he had been summoned by the Queen. Elias smiled faintly, though his stomach knotted. "I'm fine," he said, keeping his voice steady. "It's nothing bad, not yet. She knows about us, she knows about you. And she is not angry, not in the way we expected." "You really believe that? That the Queen summoned a human to test humanity?" Every touch, every glance, carried a weight that neither could speak aloud. It was a delicate dance, hiding affection in plain sight while preparing for the unknown challenges that awaited them. Later, as night fell over the crystalline city, the palace corridors glimmered under the soft light of floating lanterns. Elias walked alone, thinking, planning, and reviewing everything he knew about the Dominion. He considered the factions he had learned about, the political rivals and ancient advisors who might resent the Queen's fascination with a human. The Dominion was vast, layered, and dangerous. One wrong move could unravel everything. A sound behind him made him freeze. A figure stepped from the shadows. It was an older Xyrathi with scales of deep indigo and eyes that glimmered like polished metal. "Elias Ward," the figure said, voice low and careful. "The Queen has summoned you again. Be ready. The matters she wishes to discuss are delicate." Every word spoken in these halls could be remembered, twisted, or used as evidence against him. He had learned to tread lightly, yet think boldly. The chamber doors opened once more, revealing Queen Valeth. She was seated this time, her posture perfect, her gaze sharp. "You return," she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Good. There is much to discuss. There are threats to the Dominion that no Xyrathi alone can contain. I wish to see how you will respond. You will demonstrate it. The advisors have failed to stabilize the situation. You will go as my representative, human, and you will resolve it. Use every skill, every intuition, every lesson your species has learned from survival. Do not fail." Yet he also felt something rare: opportunity. He could show what humans could do. He could demonstrate courage, empathy, intelligence, and loyalty, all in ways the Xyrathi could not anticipate. "I understand, Your Majesty," he said, steadying his voice. "I will do my best. Humans possess something my kind has long abandoned. I wish to see it in action. Go now and remember why you fight, not for yourself, but for those who cannot fight, and for the species that will be judged by your actions." He also knew he could not do it alone. Lyrina's guidance would be crucial, as would the support of the few humans who had earned trust in the Dominion. Over the next days, he prepared. Maps, reports, schematics, and communications were all studied carefully. He practiced diplomacy and negotiation, simulating scenarios in which rebellion might turn violent. He thought not only about strategy, but about human traits that might surprise his alien counterparts: empathy, courage, sacrifice, and adaptability. When the time came to depart, Elias stood on the observation deck, watching the capital world shrink beneath the shuttle as it rose into the black of space. Lyrina stood beside him, her hand brushing against his for just a moment before she withdrew. No words were spoken, yet the silence carried meaning. They were allies, and their bond was now part of what he carried into the galaxy. The Carthage sector was distant, fragmented, and unstable. Planets dotted with sprawling cities and dangerous wilderness awaited him. Reports indicated that the rebels were well organized, with access to advanced technology. Zyrathi generals had tried to intervene and failed, retreating with their forces frustrated and wary. The task seemed impossible to others, but humans often thrived where others saw obstacles. Elias took a deep breath. The shuttle glided smoothly through space, silent but tense with the anticipation of challenges ahead. He reviewed every plan, every possible approach. Yet even as he prepared, he knew that the unpredictability of human decision-making, something the Zyrathi considered a weakness, might be his greatest advantage. Upon arrival at the Carthage sector, the first thing he noticed was the unusual calm. The planets appeared peaceful from orbit, but sensors revealed subtle signs of unrest. Communications blocked, small military movements, and shifts in trade patterns. Elias understood that true observation required more than technology. It required intuition, a skill humans had honed over millennia of surviving hostile environments. His first contact was with local officials, Zyrathi and human alike, who greeted him with suspicion. They had been betrayed before, undermined, and deceived by factions that pretended loyalty but acted in self-interest. Elias listened more than he spoke, observing patterns in behavior, reading unspoken cues, noting the gaps between words and action. When night fell on the first planet, Elias walked through one of the major cities. The streets were dimly lit, alien figures moving silently, whispering in corners. Humans had often been underestimated because of their size and perceived fragility, but Elias knew how to move unseen, how to observe without being noticed, and how to act decisively when needed. He met with rebel leaders secretly, understanding their grievances, listening to their frustrations. He did not lie, he did not manipulate. He spoke honestly, showing respect for their concerns while carefully explaining the risks of further escalation. His empathy, his willingness to see their perspective, surprised them. No human had ever approached them with both authority and understanding. Slowly, tentative alliances formed. Elias realized that this was the moment the Queen had prepared him for. Not brute force, not technology, not intimidation, but the distinctly human approach. Reason guided by heart, courage guided by loyalty, and action guided by care. He began to see the cracks in the rebellion, not as weaknesses, but as openings where diplomacy and insight could prevail. By the third day, the first significant breakthroughs occurred. Rebels agreed to discussions under safe conditions, distrust giving way to cautious cooperation. Elia's human ability to inspire trust, to listen and adapt quickly, began to shift the balance. Reports reached the Queen in real time. She observed silently, likely taking notes, analyzing the impact of humanity's influence on an alien society. Elias stood atop the observation deck of the Rebel Council building, looking out at the city below. Lights shimmered across domes and towers, reflecting the fragility and beauty of life in the Dominion. He realized, with a thrill that both terrified and exhilarated him, that the Queen had not merely tested him. She had created an opportunity for humanity to prove itself, and he had risen to meet it. He thought of Lyrina again, of the secret love that had begun this journey. Their bond had been the spark that led him to this moment, and he knew it would continue to guide his decisions. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy was beginning to understand that humans could be more than fragile creatures. They could be leaders, mediators, and agents of change. Elias smiled faintly. There was danger ahead, certainly. Rebellion was never truly over until peace was secured, yet he felt something stronger than fear, hope. The hope that one human could make a difference, and that human traits long dismissed by ancient species could shape the future of the Dominion. And as the stars shimmered beyond the observation deck, Elias realized the truth. Being human was never a weakness. It was his greatest strength. Elias had spent days in the Carthage sector, observing, learning, and slowly building trust with both rebels and loyalists. Every move he made was cautious, yet bold. The Xyrathi commanders who had failed before seemed to expect him to fail as well, but humans thrived where others hesitated. His advantage lay not in brute strength or technology alone, but in human determination, intuition, and the courage to act when others waited. The first test came sooner than he expected. Reports indicated that a minor city on Carthage IV had gone dark. Communications had ceased entirely, and small patrol ships sent to investigate had disappeared. The rebels were panicked, believing that the Dominion planned a sudden attack. Loyalists were suspicious, fearing betrayal within their ranks. Elias realized that delay would worsen the situation. He had to act decisively. He gathered a small team of humans and trusted Xyrathi allies. Their journey to the city was tense, the shuttle weaving through asteroid belts and gravitational anomalies. Each mile heightened the pressure. Elias thought about the Queen's words. Use every skill, every intuition, every lesson your species has learned from survival. He had survived harsh planets, war zones, and diplomatic disasters. Now he would apply those lessons in ways no one expected. As they approached the city, sensors revealed an eerie silence. Buildings were intact, but no movement showed on the streets. Lights flickered sporadically. Elias knew that technology alone could not reveal what had happened. He ordered the shuttle to land at the outskirts, and he led the team on foot, keeping to shadows, listening carefully to the sounds of the city. A soft sound, metal scraping against stone, caught his attention. He motioned for the team to halt. Through a narrow alley, he saw figures moving with deliberate stealth. Rebels, he guessed, but cautious. Or were they something else? His instincts told him to wait and observe before making a decision. A young rebel appeared first, hiding behind a corner. His eyes widened as he saw Elias and the human team. Normally, humans were dismissed as weak. Seeing one standing firmly, confident with authority, caused surprise and hesitation. Elias stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I am here to help," he said calmly, clearly. "I want to understand what happened. Show me the situation and we can resolve it." Inside, it became clear what had happened. A small faction of rogue rebels had sabotaged communications, cutting off the city from the rest of the sector to assert their power. They were not violent by nature, but desperate and cunning. If left unchecked, they could spark chaos across the region. Elias studied the situation carefully. Force could solve it, but violence would only deepen resentment. He chose a different path. He addressed the rogue faction directly, speaking clearly, calmly, and with empathy. He acknowledged their fears, their frustrations, and their desire for change. But he also explained the consequences of their actions. Unlike Xyrathi commanders who relied on fear and authority, Elias relied on trust, understanding, and honesty. Hours passed as he negotiated, listened, and mediated. The rogue rebels slowly began to see his point of view. They agreed to restore communications, not because they were intimidated, but because they recognized that one human, small, fragile, yet courageous, had earned their respect. Elias had demonstrated something the Dominion could not fully comprehend: human leadership through empathy and courage. As they left the city, the team celebrated quietly. Success was not just about restoring order. It was about proving that humans could solve problems where brute force failed. Elias felt a surge of satisfaction, tempered by the knowledge that challenges would only grow more complex. Back at the shuttle, he reviewed reports from the sector. Other disturbances were appearing: minor uprisings, disrupted trade routes, and suspicious movements by factions previously thought loyal. It was clear that the Dominion's stability was fragile. And it was also clear that humans, when unafraid to act boldly and think creatively, could influence outcomes in ways Xyrathi could not predict. The next challenge came from a different direction. A Xyrathi noble named Varen approached Elias with a warning. "You are changing things too quickly," he said. "The Queen may admire your actions, but others do not. Advisors are watching. Some believe your influence is dangerous." He knew the risk, but he also knew that his actions had the potential to demonstrate humanity's true value. Sometimes, risks were necessary to show strength, loyalty, and courage. He turned his attention to Lorena, who had joined him at the command center. "We need a plan," he said. "The unrest is spreading faster than expected. Technology and diplomacy alone will not solve it. We need strategy that adapts to human intuition." He sent small teams to resolve disputes, mediate between rebels and loyalists, and repair disrupted infrastructure. He encouraged communication and collaboration, often placing himself in visible positions of leadership to inspire confidence. Each success reinforced his growing reputation. Humans were seen differently now, not weak, not fragile, but capable, decisive, and courageous. Yet the deeper Elias went into the rebellion, the more he realized the stakes were higher than anyone understood. Hidden forces were manipulating the unrest. Saboteurs, spies, and rogue factions had connections beyond the Carthage sector. This was no longer a minor rebellion. It was a test of human adaptability and ingenuity. One night, as he walked through the rebel council building, he was approached by a young human engineer named Myra. "Elias," she said, her voice low. "There are reports of a coup being planned in the capital of Carthage IV. It could happen while we are here. The rebels may be used as a distraction. Prepare defenses here and send trusted messages to the cities that can resist disruption. We cannot allow the rebellion to be used against itself." Over the next hours, Elias coordinated efforts across multiple cities, using both diplomacy and strategy. He communicated with rebel leaders, loyalist commanders, and human engineers. Every decision was critical. Every action mattered. Failure was not an option. When the coup attempt finally came, it was met with resistance that surprised everyone involved. Rebels, loyalists, and humans worked together seamlessly under Elias' guidance. They foiled sabotage attempts, restored disrupted communications, and protected key infrastructure. His leadership was calm, measured, yet inspiring. Where others relied on intimidation or rigid command, Elias relied on trust, empathy, and decisive action. The coup failed. The rebellion, which had begun as a threat, became an opportunity for collaboration. The Zirathi advisors were stunned. Humans had acted with courage, creativity, and resilience. They had faced threats that were far beyond what anyone expected a single human or a small team could handle. Back in the observation tower, Elias reflected on the events. The Queen's gamble had paid off. Humanity had shown that even in a galaxy dominated by ancient and powerful species, small, fragile humans could make a difference. Courage, intelligence, and empathy were tools that could rival technology and brute force. Lorena joined him, her eyes bright with pride and admiration. "You did it," she said softly. "You've shown them what humans are capable of." His actions had earned respect, but they had also attracted attention from those who saw change as a threat. Enemies would watch closely, alliances would be tested, and the next challenge could be even greater. But for the first time, Elias felt truly confident. He understood that being human, emotional, courageous, and capable of deep loyalty was not a weakness. It was a strength the Dominion had long forgotten. It was a strength that could shape the galaxy, one action at a time. And as he looked out over the cities of Carthage IV, glowing in the soft light of a distant sun, Elias knew the truth. Humanity had proven itself. One human could change outcomes. One human could inspire courage. One human could alter the perception of an entire species. The Queen's test was far from over, but Elias was ready. Whatever came next, he would face it head-on, armed with the one thing that no ancient species could replicate: the heart of humanity. The success at Carthage IV had brought temporary peace, but Elias knew the calm would not last. The Dominion was ancient, sprawling, and full of hidden dangers. Every victory drew attention, both admiring and hostile. Word of a human who had resolved a rebellion without bloodshed spread quickly, reaching ears that were curious, fearful, or envious. Back in the capital world, the palace seemed unchanged on the surface, yet beneath its glittering walls, currents of tension stirred. Advisors whispered behind closed doors, factions plotted in shadowed corridors, and even some members of the royal council questioned Queen Valeth's fascination with a human. Elias' name had become a symbol, and symbols carried power and danger. He returned to the palace, escorted quietly through the corridors by Zirathi guards who now regarded him with a mix of caution and respect. Lorena accompanied him, silent but resolute. She had become his anchor, a constant reminder of why he could not falter. Together they had faced threats that would have destroyed ordinary humans, yet they had survived and succeeded. In the Queen's chamber, Valeth waited. She regarded Elias with an unreadable expression, her silver eyes reflecting the faint starlight from the crystal ceiling. "You have performed well," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "The Carthage sector is stabilized for now, but success often draws envy. Be prepared. Trust is a weapon many have forgotten, and it is also dangerous. Those who fear change may act rashly. Others may attempt to manipulate you, using your successes against you. Be vigilant. The coming months will test not only your courage, but your judgment and loyalty. Every ally could become an enemy, every word could be twisted, every action could have consequences he had not imagined. Yet he also felt a sense of purpose. He was human, yes, small, fragile, emotional, but he was no longer invisible. He had power in his courage, in his decisions, and in his willingness to act where others hesitated. Over the next few days, the palace buzzed with activity. Advisors debated policies, nobles maneuvered for influence, and spies reported rumors of human intervention in the Carthage sector. Elias realized that his presence had shifted more than one situation. Humans were no longer dismissed. They were being watched, evaluated, and in some cases, feared. One afternoon, he was approached by a counselor named Arvith, an older Zirathi who had long served the queen. Arvith's voice was measured. "Human, you have made waves beyond your comprehension. Some see your actions as reckless. Others see them as proof of what your kind can do. You must tread carefully. Not everyone respects courage." "I do not act recklessly. I act with purpose. I rely on observation, reason, and empathy, things humans excel at." His mind was always alert, calculating risks, analyzing allies, and predicting potential threats. The Dominion was a web of intrigue, and he had to navigate it carefully. That night, he met Lyrina in a quiet corridor. "Elias," she said, concern in her voice, "you are changing things too quickly. The Queen may admire you, but others will see you as a threat. They will act if they feel their power is challenged. They will test you, Elias, not just physically or strategically, but politically. And sometimes the greatest danger comes from those who smile while hiding daggers." The purpose was clear: to question his actions in the Carthage sector, to scrutinize his influence, and if possible, to discredit him entirely. Elias entered the council chamber with measured confidence. Zirathi nobles lined the high walls, their silver eyes sharp and cold. Arvith stood to one side, silent but observant. Queen Valith watched from her throne, expression serene but intense. "You are human," one counselor began, voice sharp. "And yet you claim to have resolved a rebellion that our finest commanders could not. How do you justify your authority, and what right do you have to interfere in Dominion affairs?" "The rebellion threatened civilians, stability, and the lives of both humans and Zirathi. I acted with careful observation, negotiation, and collaboration. The outcome preserved life and stabilized the sector. My authority is not claimed. It is granted by those who participated and witnessed the results." Others scowled, unconvinced. Elias continued, speaking with clarity and conviction. "Humans have strengths that are often overlooked: courage under pressure, the ability to act without command, and the capacity for empathy and understanding. These strengths do not diminish the Dominion, they strengthen it. I ask only to be judged by the results of my actions, not by prejudice against my species. Your influence may inspire loyalty, yes, but it may also inspire chaos. How can we trust a human to act in the interest of the Dominion? If that inspires fear, then perhaps it is time the Dominion learns that fear is not the only measure of power." Elias Ward has acted with integrity, courage, and insight. He has preserved life, stabilized rebellion, and demonstrated a perspective that our kind has long neglected. His influence is not a threat, it is an opportunity. The Council would do well to remember that the Dominion thrives not only on power and longevity, but on insight, courage, and loyalty, the qualities humans exemplify. As the council session ended, Elias walked with Lyrina through the palace halls. "You handled that well," she said. "Not with anger, not with force, but with truth and courage. You've changed how they see humans. Courage, empathy, and intelligence, these are what humans offer, and we must use them carefully, wisely, and decisively." And humans, small and fragile as they were, could be catalysts for that transformation. Elias understood that his journey was far from over. The Queen's test had begun with Carthage IV, but the real challenge was sustaining influence, navigating intrigue, and ensuring that humanity's potential was recognized and respected. Every decision, every action, every choice mattered. Yet despite the risks, Elias felt something rare and powerful: confidence. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, often dismissed as weak, emotional, or insignificant. But he knew better. Courage, empathy, intelligence, and action, these were not weaknesses. They were the tools that could shift the balance of power, change outcomes, and even reshape the Dominion itself. He looked at Lyrina, her presence steady and reassuring, and thought of the journey that had brought him here. From a secret love in the lower laboratories to commanding respect across an entire sector, humans had proven their worth. And Elias knew that the next challenges would be greater, but humans were capable of facing them together. As night fell over the palace, Elias stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars beyond. The galaxy was vast, ancient, and dangerous, yet full of possibility, and humanity, small as it seemed, had begun to leave its mark. One human, courageous and determined, had changed perception, challenged assumptions, and inspired hope. The Dominion would never see humans the same way again. And Elias Ward, small, human, and brave, knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had shifted, though no one would have admitted it openly. Elias Ward had returned from Carthai's IV not merely as a human diplomat or envoy, but as a symbol of courage, empathy, and ingenuity. Across the Dominion, whispers of human potential spread quietly, carried by both allies and skeptics. And as always, the Queen watched, her silver eyes reflecting the subtle power of observation that had guided Elias to this moment. The palace was tense that morning. Rumors of unrest in outer sectors had grown louder. Some noble factions were uneasy, afraid that a human's influence might overshadow their centuries of authority. The Queen called Elias to her chamber, and this time the summons carried a weight he could feel in every step he took. Valeth sat on her throne, as tall and serene as ever. "Elias Ward," she began, her voice calm but commanding, "the Dominion faces challenges that may determine its future. Some see only weakness in your species, but you have proven otherwise. Now you must demonstrate it once more. There are forces that seek to destabilize the entire system, using unrest in the outer sectors as leverage. They underestimate humans, but I do not. You are human, yes, fragile, emotional, unpredictable, and yet in that unpredictability lies strength. Use it well. But humans can act where others hesitate. You've shown that already." Commanders who once relied solely on force were hesitant, unsure how to respond to Elias' human-inspired diplomacy. He moved quickly, dividing his team to tackle multiple crises simultaneously. Communication, observation, and trust became his weapons. In one city, a rebellious faction had seized control of the central power grid. The Zyrathi military prepared for a direct assault, but Elias acted differently. He spoke directly to the faction leaders, listening to their grievances, understanding their fears, and demonstrating a willingness to cooperate. Slowly, they agreed to restore power and negotiate with loyalists, not out of fear, but because they trusted a human's honesty and empathy. In another sector, trade routes were disrupted by those attempting to exploit the unrest. Elias organized human engineers and local authorities to repair the routes quickly, ensuring civilians were protected and commerce could continue. Each action, measured yet decisive, strengthened the fragile web of alliances that held the Dominion together. Through it all, whispers grew louder. Humans were not weak. Humans could lead, inspire, and stabilize. What the Zyrathi had long forgotten, courage guided by empathy, ingenuity without arrogance, was being displayed by a single human in ways that could not be ignored. But the true test came when a coordinated plot was discovered. A coalition of nobles, frustrated by Elias' influence, had planned to incite a widespread rebellion, hoping to discredit him and force the Queen to abandon her support. Their plan was subtle: misinformation, sabotage, and staged uprisings intended to appear spontaneous. The objective was simple: undermine humans and their allies. Elias learned of the plan through careful observation and intelligence. He realized that direct confrontation would play into the conspirators' hands. Instead, he devised a strategy that combined diplomacy, technology, and human intuition. Messages were sent to both rebels and loyalists, carefully revealing fragments of truth to create trust. Teams were placed in strategic positions to respond instantly to any aggressive moves. And Elias himself acted as the human element that no one could fully anticipate: empathetic, courageous, and willing to make decisions others hesitated to take. When the first uprising began, it was met not with suppression alone, but with understanding and coordination. Rebels saw that their grievances were acknowledged, loyalists saw the fairness of action, and the conspirators' plan unraveled before it could gain momentum. Humans, led by Elias, acted decisively, improvising solutions where strict rules would have failed. By the end of the first week, the coalition had collapsed. The outer sectors stabilized, and civilians celebrated quietly, unaware of how close they had come to chaos. Elia's approach had prevented bloodshed, maintained order, and proved that humans could operate in ways Zirathi never could, combining courage, empathy, and action in equal measure. Word of his success reached the capital. Advisors who had questioned him now hesitated, unable to deny the results. Even those who envied his influence were forced to reconsider. Queen Valith called him once more to her chamber, where her expression carried approval unlike before. "You have done well," she said. "The Dominion has seen what humanity can do, not just intelligence or strength, but courage, compassion, and action. These qualities have preserved stability and, in some cases, saved lives. Your success is not merely personal, it reflects the potential of your species. And that is why the Dominion must recognize your kind, not as servants, observers, or fragile creatures, but as partners, leaders, and allies. You have reminded us that weakness is often perception, and strength is measured not by size or age, but by courage, insight, and heart." The Queen had not summoned him merely to test him. She had given humanity an opportunity to prove itself, and he had not failed. As he left the chamber, he thought of Lorena and the journey that had brought them here. From secret messages and quiet meetings in hidden laboratories to leading efforts that stabilized entire sectors, their bond had guided him, strengthened him, and reminded him of what humans were capable of. Love, courage, empathy, these were not weaknesses. They were human strengths that could shape the galaxy. Across the Dominion, subtle changes began to appear. Humans were invited to advisory councils, included in strategic discussions, and trusted to mediate disputes. The perception of their species shifted from fragile and emotional to capable and influential. Other species began to take notice. The story of Elia's ward spread quietly, but its impact was undeniable. Even the most skeptical advisors could not ignore the results. Where centuries of rigid rule and intimidation had failed, a human had succeeded through empathy, courage, and decisive action. The Queen's gamble had proven correct. Humans possessed qualities that the Dominion had forgotten, and those qualities could shape the future. Elias returned to his quarters one evening, exhausted but alive with purpose. Lorena met him there, her eyes reflecting pride and warmth. "You've done it," she said softly. "The galaxy has begun to see humans differently. They may never forget what you've shown them. We have shown what we can do when we refuse to hide, when we trust ourselves and each other." The Queen's voice echoed through his thoughts, reminding him that vigilance was still necessary. Challenges would come again, because the galaxy was vast and full of ambition. Yet Elias felt ready. Humans had proven that courage, empathy, and intelligence could change outcomes in ways that even the most ancient and powerful species could not anticipate. For the first time, he understood what the Queen had meant when she spoke of human strength. It was not merely the ability to survive or fight, but the capacity to act with heart, insight, and courage. Humanity's potential was limitless when guided by purpose and compassion. As he looked out over the palace city, lights shimmering like stars below a distant sky, Elias felt a quiet pride. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked for centuries. Now they were no longer invisible. They were seen, respected, and valued. One human, courageous and determined, had reminded the galaxy of what humans were capable of. And this was only the beginning. Across the Dominion, humans began to rise, not as servants, observers, or minor participants, but as leaders, mediators, and allies. Their influence spread quietly but steadily, changing perceptions, inspiring courage, and building bridges where others saw only conflict. Elias stood on the observation deck, Lorena by his side, and looked toward the stars. He realized that the galaxy was vast, ancient, and full of challenges, but also full of possibilities. Humanity had proven itself not through domination, but through heart, courage, and wisdom. They had shown that strength came in many forms, and that even small, fragile humans could shape the destiny of worlds. In that moment, Elias understood the truth. Being human was not a weakness. It was a power the galaxy had underestimated, a force guided by love, courage, and insight. And as he looked at the endless stars, he knew that humanity's story was only beginning, a story of hope, strength, and determination that no species could ignore. The Dominion had learned something essential. The future belonged not only to those who ruled with age or fear, but to those who acted with courage, heart, and vision. And in that future, humans would no longer be overlooked. Elias smiled, feeling the weight of history shift beneath his feet. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never see them the same way again.